Iraq, Libya, Iran. 3 different countries, 3 different decades, 3 very different leaders. But one thing in common, they all tried to sell their oil in a currency that wasn't the US dollar. And they were all destroyed. That's not a coincidence. That's a system. And once you understand it, you'll never read a headline the same way again. Every single day, the world buys over 100 million barrels of oil. And almost every single one of those transactions is priced in one currency, the US dollar. Not because it's the best currency, because of a deal made in secret in 1974 in Saudi Arabia, a deal that has shaped every war, every sanction, every geopolitical conflict since. You think wars are fought over ideology? Over democracy? Over freedom? No, they're fought over this, the right to control which currency oil is sold in. Let me show you why. To understand the petrodollar, you have to go back to 1944. World War II is almost over. 44 countries gather in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. And they make a decision that shapes the next 80 years of human history. Every major currency in the world will be pegged to the US dollar. And the US dollar will be backed by gold. 1 ounce of gold, $35. Fixed. The world trusts the dollar because the dollar is gold. Then comes August 15, 1971. President Nixon goes on live television and ends it. Just like that. The dollar is no longer backed by gold. Economists call it the Nixon Shock, because that's exactly what it was. Shock. Suddenly, the world is holding trillions of dollars backed by nothing. Just the promise of the United States government. And the question becomes urgent. Why would anyone trust the dollar now? Washington had a problem, and Henry Kissinger had a solution. In 1974, Kissinger flies to Saudi Arabia. He makes a proposal. Sell your oil exclusively in US dollars. Not in gold, not in pounds, not in any other currency. Only dollars. In return, the United States guarantees the security of the Saudi royal family. Military protection, weapons, a permanent shield. Saudi Arabia agrees, and within months, every other OPEC nation follows. Here's what that means in practice. Japan needs oil. It pays in dollars. Germany needs oil. It pays in dollars. China needs oil. It pays in dollars. Every nation on Earth suddenly needs a constant supply of US dollars. Not to trade with America, just to keep their lights on. The dollar isn't backed by gold anymore. It's backed by oil. But it gets deeper. Here's the part most people never hear about. Petrodollar recycling. Saudi Arabia is now collecting billions of dollars every month from oil sales. What do they do with it? They invest it back into the United States. US Treasury bonds, US stocks, US real estate. Billions. Every month. Flowing back to Washington. And this creates something extraordinary. The United States can run massive budget deficits, borrow trillions of dollars, and still keep interest rates low. Because there's always a buyer for US debt. The same countries buying the oil are funding the debt. It's a closed loop. Elegant, ruthless, invisible. Think about what this really means. The US gets to print money, the rest of the world absorbs the inflation, and they pay for it every time they fill up a gas tank. If this is the first time you've heard any of this, you're not alone. This is exactly what this channel exists to explain. The hidden architecture of global power. Subscribe, because what comes next is where it gets dangerous. Here's what every other video on the petrodollar leaves out. The system doesn't survive on trust, it survives on consequences. Saddam Hussein. The year 2000. Iraq announces it will start selling oil in euros instead of dollars. 3 years later, the United States invades Iraq. The weapons of mass destruction were never found. But the oil sales? Immediately switched back to dollars. Muammar Gaddafi, Libya, 2009. He proposes a gold-backed African currency for oil sales. A gold dinar that would bypass the dollar entirely. 2 years later, NATO destroys his government. Gaddafi is killed. The gold dinar dies with him. Iran. Today, for decades, Iran has refused to denominate oil sales in dollars. It trades in euros, yuan, rubles. and it is under the most severe economic sanctions in modern history. And now, military strikes. 3 countries. 3 different reasons given to the public. 1 real reason underneath. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is foreign policy, written in plain sight, if you know what you're reading. But for the first time in 50 years, something is changing. Countries that used to be too small to challenge the system aren't anymore. China, the world's largest oil importer, now conducting billions in oil trades in Chinese yuan, the petro-yuan. Iran has reportedly told tanker operators, pass through the Strait of Hormuz in yuan, not dollars. That strait carries 20% of the world's oil supply. Russia and China now trading almost entirely in rubles and yuan. BRICS nations building alternative payment systems to bypass the dollar entirely. And the US dollar's share of global reserves has dropped from 71% in 2000 to 58% today. It's still dominant. But the slope is clear. This isn't abstract. This isn't something that happens in boardrooms that doesn't touch your life. Here's what petrodollar dominance actually means for the average person. The United States can print money without immediately causing its own inflation. Because the inflation gets exported, spread across every country that holds dollars. But if that system ends, if the world stops needing dollars to buy oil, the trillions of dollars held overseas come home. And when they do, inflation in the United States doesn't look like 8%. It looks like 40%, 50%, maybe more. Interest rates spike. Mortgages become unpayable. Savings collapse in real value. This is why Washington will do almost anything to protect this system. Because the alternative isn't just expensive, it's existential. The petrodollar has survived for 50 years. Not because it's fair, not because it's efficient, but because the cost of challenging it has always been too high. Iraq learned that. Libya learned that. Iran is learning that now. But for the first time, the countries pushing back have the economic weight to survive the pressure. China can't be invaded. Russia can't be sanctioned into submission. And BRICS now represents more of global GDP than the G7. We are living through the most significant shift in global financial power since 1971. Most people won't understand it until it's already happened. You just got ahead of them. Subscribe to Wealth Geostrategy. Because the hidden forces shaping wealth don't stop moving. Neither do we.